With the NBA offseason still here, Nets forward Kevin Durant has made it very clear with the owner that it's either him or fire the GM and head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. How does the Nets organization respond to this? What went wrong in Brooklyn? And will Kevin Durant be traded or will he stay with the Brooklyn Nets? All of that will be covered today on Cooper Sports Podcast. And you are now listening to Cooper Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Cooper Brooks, bringing you the best content from the NBA and NFL. Wherever you may be listening from Spotify or YouTube, thank you for listening. I am back, everybody, after a long week from last week of being very busy. There's just no time for me to do a podcast. I couldn't even sit down and think of what I wanted to do. But now that's out of the way and it's a new week, so I'm ready to start a new week of podcast. I hope y'all miss me. But this podcast for today, today's is a basketball contents on the NBA, and what we're going to be talking about today is the news on Kevin Durant. So this is like a week old news. This news happened last week. This is when I wasn't podcasting all of last week. Well, we have some news up in Brooklyn from like a week ago that Nets forward Kevin Durant, first reported by Shams Charania, great NBA insider, by the way. It was first reported by him that Kevin Durant had met with Nets owner Joe Tsai, in which he I forgot that word. He basically retraded his trade request. Durant said he did not have faith in the team's direction and told Joe Tsai he needs to choose between him or GM Sean Marks and head coach Steve Nash. So we're going to get right into it. So basically what's going on in Brooklyn is that Kevin Durant has let the Nets owner know that he needs to choose. He told him this face-to-face, by the way. That's what it also reports. That he said it to him face-to-face. They were in London. He said, you either need to choose between me or GM Sean Marks and head coach Steve Nash. So, by the way, Kevin Durant has not been traded, by the way. No one has found a home. Kevin Durant has not yet found a new home. We don't know if he's going to be traded or not, or if he will even suit up for the Brooklyn Nets this year. So we're going to get all into that other stuff later, but he's basically telling him, you either trade me or you fire Sean Marks and Steve Nash. So here's what I'm thinking. Kevin Durant requested trade June 30th, the very first day of NBA free agency. A whole month goes by, nothing. KD turns up the Jets a little bit. He makes it more aggressive. He makes a more aggressive move. He goes to the owner and says, trade me or you fire Sean Marks and Steve Nash. He's basically putting the owner on fire, saying that you better do this or I won't do that. The Nets owner tweeted out later that day saying, our front office and coaching staff have my support. We will make decisions in the best interest of the Brooklyn Nets. So there's so many problems right here with the Brooklyn Nets. There's been problems with the Brooklyn Nets this past offseason and basically this whole past season. Let's see. How does the offseason start out? First of all, in the playoffs, you get bounced first round against a very young, talented Boston Celtics squad. You get swept. So now you get to the offseason. Kyrie Irving is now saying that he does not want to play. Kyrie Irving is not going to opt in. Or that's what it was, yeah. Kyrie Irving saying that he is not going to opt in on his... has not yet opted on his player opt-in contract for the 2022 and 2023 season. Gosh, I can't speak right now. And he had a deadline. So a couple days before that deadline, he does it, and there you go. What happens a few days later? Kevin Durant requests a trade from Brooklyn. So now we've got a whole month, and Kevin Durant still hasn't been gone, or Kevin Durant is still with Brooklyn. So what I think about this whole situation with Kevin Durant doing this, my man, didn't you ask for Steve Nash to be head coach or something? I thought I saw something where Steve Nash was where Durant wanted Steve Nash as head coach. I may be wrong. I could be right. I could be wrong. I think I'm wrong because I just thought in my head, I thought I saw something about that. Well, also, I'm gonna put Sean Marks on the hot seat here, but I'm also gonna take him off the hot seat because Sean Marks does also blame for some of this, for all these Nets issues. Okay, the summer of 2019 in free agency, what happened? He goes out and gets top two players in the NBA together, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And when I say top players, I didn't mean the top two players in the NBA. I'm just saying top players in the NBA. He goes and gets Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both for 4-year deals. Then what happens? They're both out that year. Well, Kyrie plays for that year, and then he just disappears. Kevin didn't play at all because he's coming off that Achilles from the 2019 playoffs. Um, but you get to the 2020 season, and then what do? You trade for James Harden. So you're thinking, all right, this team's going to be the best. We're back in business, baby. Brooklyn is going to be the team that leads us to a chip. Nope. Get bounced second round all because of KD's freaking shoe, man. I'm sorry. I love KD, and every time I think of that, I just, I just like, I'm sad because, KD's my guy, and I love him so much as a player. But you get bounced by the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 7, in 7 games, and now you're thinking, oh crap, what are we going to do now? You just traded for James Harden, and yet again, Harden was injured for half that series, and then Kyrie got hurt and was out for the rest of the series once he got to Game 1 or Game 4. But it was a good, well-fought series. But then you get to the offseason from last year, but heading into that 2021, 2022 season, you have all 3 guys back. But here's the problem. The NBA has issued the vaccine mandate saying players who do not get the vaccine mandate will not allow to be playing at all in the season. So what happens? Kyrie Irving doesn't get the vaccine. He's out. He doesn't come back until almost the playoffs. So Sean Marks does a great job of doing this. Sean Marks does a great job of going out and get these 2 big names, and then he goes in and trades for James Harden, and then we think this is the team that does it. But it's partially also not his fault because these guys are injured. These guys literally got injured. They barely played a full season. They didn't even play a full season together, and they never saw the court together. So it's like, Sean Marks, you wasted all of this just for that, but you didn't know this was going to happen. But also on the other part, Sean Marks, like, this is like completely unfolding now. Like, Sean Marks gets these players together, and look where we're at. Harden's gone. He's traded to Philly. Then you have Kyrie Irving, who just opted in on this contract from the past month. And then now you have Kevin Durant, your top guy. You're basically your franchise player is wanting out of Brooklyn, and he's putting the owner on the hot seat saying, you better do this or this won't happen, whatever. So Kevin Durant needs to understand that he's not going to get everything that he wants. Okay, yeah, he lost back in 2016, and he got out of OKC. He got what he wanted, but he joined the Golden State Warriors. He got bashed for that. What did he do? He won 2 chips. Yes, that looks kind of bad on him, but still, he's an amazing player, and he's good at what he does. And that was one of the greatest Golden State Warriors run we've seen by a team in a long time. But Kevin Durant, I'm thinking he also is kind of to blame for this as well, but also not. You can't. If he's not wanting to stay in Brooklyn, then that's an issue. Because my man KD, you just got there like 3 years ago, and then 3 years later you're saying you went out. KD, you just also signed a big mega contract. I think it was 4 years and $164 million deal. Last summer, right after you got back from the Olympics in Tokyo, I think it was in Tokyo. I can't remember. We're not talking about that. Right after you got back from the Olympics last year, you signed that contract with the Brooklyn Nets. And where are we at a year later? You won out. Okay, KD, you can't just say, hey, I'm going to sign this contract, and then you won out already the next year. No, KD's also got to realize he is the franchise player. Like, he is the guy that the Nets need. Yes, Kyrie Irving was out for a year, which we'll get into Kyrie Irving too. Kyrie Irving made a decision that really jeopardized his team. It really, really jeopardized his team. Because with Kyrie, the Nets were the number one seed. Without Kyrie, the Nets managed to get the number one seed with Kevin Durant and James Harden. But once KD went down, the Nets had that first seed and they dropped all the way down to a play-in spot. So Kyrie basically also jeopardized the squad as well. He's also to blame for this. He was also missing time a couple seasons ago for certain reasons. Yeah, like going and having your own birthday party and missing games. Yeah. Okay? Like, dude, you're jeopardizing the team to do that. And then James Harden says, I want out of Houston. Sayonara goes to Brooklyn. A year later, he says, all right, I want out of freaking Brooklyn now. So, back to my point about Sean Marks, this is also some of his to blame because he assembled this squad, this big three squad, and now they're already out. And also, Sean Marks did trade a lot to get Harden. And he traded a lot of good players, but they got a lot of that back from Harden. So I will give him that. Who do I think won the trade? The Nets won the trade because look what they got back. They got a few good picks back. They got Andre Drummond, which is a great rim protector, which they needed after trading Jared Allen. You get Seth Curry, you get Paul Millsap. All is good. You have an older veteran, LaMarcus Aldridge, who his time is probably not up just. It's going down, but he still can play. But again, really, and Steve Nash too. Steve Nash. I'm going to bring Steve Nash up into this. Steve Nash is his second year head coach. He just came off his second year of head coach. No coaching experience, no high school, no college, no nothing. Just straight out head coaching for the Brooklyn Nets. So I can also see now why Katie's frustrated because I guess he didn't like Nash's coaching. I've heard there were reports saying that Kyrie didn't even like Steve Nash. Apparently, Kyrie Irving, after Nets practices, was conducting his own practices. And I remember back in June when Kyrie was having that whole deal with trying to opt in or not, he was even having issues with the Nets. So they didn't know if he was going to move forward or not. But Kevin Durant Kevin Durant, love him. Great, excellent, and talented player. Enjoy letting him play. But in the end, man, you just got there. Why would you already want to pack it up and leave? Yes, Sean Marks probably is not your biggest. You're not Sean Marks. You're probably not the biggest fan of Sean Marks or Steve Nash. But yet again, you're like their franchise guy. I would like for you to stay. I mean, if you go, you go. But I would like for you to stay in Brooklyn because that's where you're that guy for Brooklyn. So we're gonna get into why KD is still in Brooklyn. So KD has not been traded ever since he requested that trade back in June 30th, I believe it was. Yep, at the start of free agency, day one. So now, a lot of you who are listening to this podcast right now are thinking, okay, Coop's talking about Kevin Durant, but why hasn't he been traded yet? Now, a lot of people do know this answer, and a lot of people don't know this answer. So I'm going to answer this question for a lot of people who don't know. A lot of teams don't have enough assets to get Kevin Durant. When you're talking about Kevin Durant, you think that you have to get a lot of assets for Kevin Durant to trade for him. And that's the problem. A lot of teams don't. Phoenix, Miami, and I don't know who else. Phoenix and Miami are the top two spots, apparently, for Kevin Durant. He's also brought up the 76ers. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work. You got to trade a lot. KD and Harden back together. I don't know how that would work, but a lot of these teams don't have enough, and you want to put Kevin Durant on a team that he can be around that can be stacked and a championship team with a bunch of superstars. But here's the problem: not enough assets. You look at Miami, his teams that he wants to go to. Miami, they don't have enough assets. So what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to give up a lot of picks. They'll probably have to do a 2-team trade, maybe, or 3-team, because they can't just single-handedly alone just throw in Tyler Hero or Bam Adebayo or somebody for Durant. You'd have to just give up a lot. Phoenix can't, because if y'all remember, I did a podcast on this too, and it was also reported. DeAndre Ayton, when he signed that trade clause, when the Suns got DeAndre Ayton back, DeAndre Ayton now has the ability for a full year to decline any trade that comes his way. So I talked about that a lot last time when I was talking about DeAndre Ayton. So DeAndre Ayton has the choice to say no, I don't want to be traded. So he basically has the choice to say no, I don't want to be traded to Brooklyn for Kevin Durant. So that's off the table as well, I think. But you want to put Kevin Durant in a system that will work if you're going to trade him. Kevin Durant is a talented guy. He's heading into his 15th season. He still has a lot left. After averaging 29.9 after coming off that injury, he had a great season before that injury. I think he was in MVP votes before, he came back and then that all went down the drain for him. But KD's a great player. He's a great guy. He's an amazing guy to watch. But when you think about the situation with all these trades, you'd have to do like a 3-team, 2-team trade. Because again, we're talking about Kevin Durant here. Kevin Durant is worth a lot of picks and a lot of players to get into. You could probably trade him to Utah maybe, because Utah has a lot of those draft picks. You could probably draft him somewhere maybe like, I don't know, but there were saying rumors, Lakers and Kyrie and Durant, Lakers, so I don't know how the heck that's going to work. You could maybe trade him to, I don't know. You could trade him anywhere, but you're going to have to give him up a lot. But you can't, oh, sorry, let me go back and say that. You can't really trade him anywhere because he's worth a lot. So, we're still here. The date is August 15th, 2022, and Kevin Durant still hasn't been traded. Now, how do you think? Now, let's get back into the Nets front office here. Joe Tsai. I don't know how to say his last name. Excuse me if I don't know how to say it right. I just can't say it right. How does the front office respond to this? I think what the Nets owner is going to say is, no, I'm not getting rid of you. Kevin Durant's going to go, oh, well, why not? I'm asking you, do it now. Okay, here's my sign of here's my point of view from the Nets owner side. Okay, Durant, I just paid like mega bucks for you to get here to 3 years ago, and then just a year ago I gave you a big mega contract for you to sign. My team and I gave you a big contract to sign so that way you could stay here for a very long time and be our franchise guy. And now you want to a year later you want to up and leave? No, I gave up a lot for you. And by the way, I just figured this out. As an NBA fan, I just figured this out. That when Kevin Durant went to the Nets, it was a sign and trade. I thought he was just a free agent. He just signed with the Nets. I did not know that was a sign and trade. So knowing my knowledge, I didn't know that. So let's go back to what I'm thinking as the Nets owner. I give up a lot for you in a sign and trade. I gave you a great talented point guard, Kyrie Irving. I gave you pretty much everything you need. I gave you a head coach, which it's questionable with Steve Nash. We don't know how it's still going to work heading into his third season. I gave you everything you needed, and now you want to up and leave 3 years later. And then we even get to see this Nets squad. We didn't even the Harden, Kyrie, and Durant thing just didn't work. So I'm not going to give you up just for something that happened. Yes, Kyrie also, then apparently the Lakers are also in talks still with Kyrie, about Kyrie, but him and his front office gave up a lot to get KD and to get Harden and to get Kyrie. And they gave him all that money. Now, where do we stand now with the Nets? Well, the Nets traded for Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons, who hasn't played since July of... Yeah, no. Who hasn't played since June of last year, of 2021. He hasn't touched a basketball yet, and he hasn't physically touched a basketball and played a basketball game on an NBA court. He hasn't done that yet. So, the Nets owner, I'm also thinking, I just gave up Harden for Ben Simmons. I'm thinking, hey, this new big dude's going to be great with you, Kyrie, and Simmons. Simmons hasn't even seen playing time yet. I'm not giving you up for that either because the Nets owner gave up, I'm sure, a lot for. Well, yeah, him and the front office gave up a lot for that. And Ben Simmons hasn't seen. We don't. So basically, we don't know what Durant and Simmons and Irving are going to be like because we haven't seen them play yet because Ben Simmons has been out. So why should the owner trade you Durant and he hasn't even seen what his new type of team can do? Because again, this Nets team can be really good if Ben Simmons just gets in his right mindset that he's ready to come back and that he can get healthy. And when he's healthy and he can get a lot better, he'll be a good player. And he'll be definitely out there on the court playing good defense. So, where do I stand with all of this? Kevin Durant, stay with Brooklyn. That's just my best advice for you. Because nobody's been able to find a trade for the past month. Now, don't get me wrong on that. Now, I'm going to come and fix something up. I just said that no one's been able to find a trade for you. Now, there's been a couple times where there's been one time, big moment where it has worked. And that's back in July, late July of last month. The Boston Celtics reportedly put up a couple draft picks for Jaylen Brown to get Kevin Durant. So they're going to trade Brown for Durant. And I think the Nets said no. Wow, you're going to say no to Jaylen Brown? I think it was the Net. I can't remember who it was. I think it was the Boston Celtics or the Brooklyn Nets that said no. But you're going to say no to that trade. Well, Jaylen Brown is still a very talented young gentleman. Jaylen Brown's still a talented young man. He is still developing into that player. A few years ago, he was young. He was a rookie. He wasn't there yet. Now he is. He just got to an NBA Finals. Yes, he lost to the Golden State Warriors and a great team, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and others. But still, that was a good series for him. He had a good playoff run with his company with Jason Tatum and Al Horford and Marcus Smart and Robert Williams and others. It was a good run for him. He's improved a lot over the years since he's been in the playoffs and in the regular season. And with that could have been a good trade because you would have had the rotation with Jaylen Brown would have been with Kyrie and they could have had a good run together. Durant with Boston, I don't know how that fit with Tatum and Durant. So I don't know how you give up that trade because that was your closest to getting Durant out of Brooklyn. But the reason why that trade didn't go through, I think it was Brooklyn because they also reported after that trade happened that they wanted Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart, in my eyes, is not a really offensive player. He's more of a defense. Yes, he won Defensive Player of the Year, and yes, some people were upset about that. But Marcus Smart, in my eyes, is more of a defensive guy more than an offense. Yes, he can shoot. I've seen him play. I know how he shoots, and I know how he can put up the ball in the basket. But I look at him more of a defensive player. They wanted to use him in the rotation. I don't know why though. You would want to get Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown probably felt sad after flipping almost getting traded because Boston really had something going there with him, and then they just throw him away like, hey, you had a good run with us. You got to the finals. Okay, you're going to Brooklyn. So that almost happened. So, with all this craziness happening in the offseason, Durant still hasn't been traded. The Nets don't know what to do. The season's almost upon us. Actually, we're 2 months out from the season, so there's still plenty of time. But training camps are coming up, and practices are going to be starting soon, so you still have that. But Kevin Durant, just give this a chance. Just give this season a chance. Don't get traded. Cancel your trade request and see how this plays. Nets owner, I'm just going to say Joe, don't think about trading Durant. You gave up a lot. You and your front office gave up a lot to get him. You signed Kyrie. You got James Harden. You traded him for Ben Simmons. Just see how this works, Durant. Just see how clearly Harden and Irving didn't work. So let's try Irving and Simmons. Let's try you, Irving and Simmons in this backcourt of the Nets that have talented guys with Andre Drummond, Seth Curry, Paul Millsap. They just got Royce O'Neal, a very good young defensive player in my eyes. So see what happens. If it doesn't work out next year, okay, you have every right to be mad. But come on. No one's going to give up anything for you anymore after that Boston trade. I don't know if they're even to this day, as I'm talking about this right now, on this day, I don't know if they're still seeking trades. They probably are, but you have to give up a lot. The Heat can't really give up a lot. A lot of other teams can't either. Boston almost had their shot. They said no. So Durant, just see how it works, see how it goes. How do I think the Nets will be this season going forward? How good will they be? Honestly, with if Durant stays, they'll still be good. We can get all that bad blood out of the year. Sean Marks did an amazing job putting this team together, but yet again, he did assemble this. Him in the front office, they did put this together. So a partial blame is also on that for him. But I'm not going to give him the full blame, just some of it. So with that all being said, the Brooklyn Nets, they just need to figure out something, and hopefully they can get back. Hopefully they can clean up all this mess, and that Durant can hopefully stay, and that they can get on a run. Because I want to see my guy KD win a chip without hearing every day, okay, you can't win a chip without himself. I just want him to win one on his own, without Curry or Clay and the Warriors. So with that, I think that's going to be the end of our podcast. Again, I'm your host, Cooper Brooks, host of Cooper Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Please share this podcast more. I'd like more people to know about this. I want to get this out more so that people can hear my stuff and see what they think. Again, you're listening to Cooper Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening.